Oh my goodness. Wow. I have chills from that. Chills from that. Okay. Let me get myself to the written here. Oh, I love that song. I love that song because it's speaking to that our life is unwritten, right? There's this blank page before us, and we have the power and the opportunity to co-create what's going to be on that page. No one else has the power to do that, right? And so frequently the world tells us that we don't have that power. That is the message of the world, is that we don't have that power, that it's already decided who we're going to be, how we're going to be. The world loves labels and boxes and putting people in, a lane and expecting you to stay there. And I love that song because it's about, no, it's unwritten. It is unwritten. And what we know here is that we have the power to write our story. So today I'm talking about a way for us to really think about that power to write our story. So I'm talking today about moving from fear to flow. Reclaim your power. Reclaim your power. And so, right now in the world, we are standing at a huge crossroads. We're standing looking at so many of our structures are changing and shifting so fast. Things are being changed and erased and shaken and moved in ways that we couldn't have even imagined just 90 days ago, right? So we're at this place where I used to call this, with my corporate clients, there was an improv exercise I would do with them called Big Change Fast. And it was about how do you maintain your center? How do you maintain your presence, your confidence, your groundedness when you're constantly assaulted with lots of different stimuli, right? How do you maintain your center in the face of that? So it was an improv exercise I would run with corporate executives. And we are literally in the midst of big change fast, right? Lightning speed, things are happening. And it's one thing after the other. We can't even catch our breath. And so that's where we are. And it's a perfect state, a perfect flurry of activity, a perfect recipe to sow the seeds of fear in the populace, to sow the seeds of fear in individuals. It is the perfect recipe to make us feel off kilter, to make us feel like we don't have any control. All these things are being done all around us. What am I going to do? Right? This is a perfect recipe for that. And I'm here to tell you that we are shifting from fear to flow. From fear to flow. So let's talk about what happens when we're fearful. When we're fearful, a variety of things begin to happen. So on the spiritual level, when we are fearful, we are actually separate from the divine. We see ourselves as separate, right? We see ourselves as somehow we're sort of out here alone, and then maybe there's God up in the sky somewhere, but we're not sure because we see all these things and we have questions about it, right? And so we feel this sense of separateness and that we're being tested, or that, the world says we're sinners, or that we're born with sin, right? And we're being tested by all these things. And so that is what happens spiritually when we are in this fear state. We are separate. Whatever story we're buying into, we're feeling separate from that which created us. And then physiologically, what happens when we're in a fearful state is we start to have what's called the amygdala hijack, right? So that little part of the brain, the reptilian part of your brain that is there, so that we can. It's sort of I want to say ancient, but it's an old wiring we have in our brains, so that when we meet danger, we can either fight, or we can flee, or we freeze. Right? And so when that amygdala gets hijacked, all of a sudden we are in a primal state of, oh my God, right? It creates anxiety. It creates this physiological response of anxiety, of nervousness, of shallow breathing, of release of cortisol and adrenaline hormones in the body, right? This is what begins to happen when we're in a fearful state. So not only are we spiritually disconnected, we are also physiologically, our brain is in our hormonal body is now operating in a state that we need to fight, we need to flee, we need to get out, we're in danger, right? And in the modern world, this happens frequently, right? In antiquity, maybe it would happen, I don't know how frequently, but let's say, once a few weeks when you're hunting for food. And now it happens like every text message, right? And so we have this flood of stress hormones that's throwing everything off. When we're in a fear state, it also shuts down our ability, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which means we cannot plan and strategize well, right? The executive function of our brains literally cannot, because it's trying to survive. So it can't plan, it can't strategize well. It's just in a fearful state. Everything is alarm, everything's an alarm. Yeah? And so this is what is happening now in the world with the news that we get all the time, every single day, moment after moment after moment, headline after headline. This is the state that it whips us into individually and as a collective. And then we can't think out of it. We can't come up with a solution. We can't get to center. We can't realize our own power, right? And one thing that we know fear does is fear constricts everything, right? When you're fearful, everything shuts down. The heart shuts down. The executive function of the brain shuts down. Our cognitive process shuts down. And many times our whole body is just constricted. Can y'all feel that? You know, you see a headline and the pit of your stomach, oof. You see a headline, your heart, oof, right? And it's just smaller and smaller. There's no flow. There's no flow happening. And so the invitation is right now to acknowledge, and in Science of Mind, we don't deny external circumstances, but we don't set up camp in them, right? We don't deny, yes, there's a lot going on. Yes, we're in big change fast. Yes, there is scary stuff happening. Yes, we feel feelings of being afraid or being anxious or being tense. This is happening, and at the very same time, in this teaching, what we know is these are all facts that we are experiencing or observing. These are facts, but it's not the capital T truth. It is not the capital T truth. It is not the capital T, meaning spiritual principle. It is not the truth. And so what I want to invite you into today is to acknowledge the fear and feel the fear, because we are on a ride, my friends. We are on a ride, and we're going to be on that ride for a moment. You know, I always say I do not like roller coasters, so I don't know why I signed up to be here now on the planet. Because I am not a roller coaster person. I am not a roller coaster person. Yeah, I am not a roller coaster person at all. Yes. And so it's so funny that I'm here. You know, I'm remembering the story. I'm remembering this story when I was a kid. My mom, when my mom was in law school, and the summer that she took the bar, she sent me to California. We lived in Ohio, and she sent me to California with cousins to hang out for the summer while she was studying and taking the bar. And so when she took the bar in Ohio, then she flew out to California, and we all went to Disneyland to celebrate. And I made the mistake of wanting to get on this ride called the Matterhorn. Do y'all know the Matterhorn? Okay, y'all know the Matterhorn? Okay. So we get on the ride, and we strap in, and then, you know, like you're outside, and then you go like in this mountain, right? And then it starts, and I must have been like, I don't know, 8 or 10. I lost my you-know-what, okay? I completely lost it. I started weeping and wailing and begging and crying to get off the ride. And everyone, to the point where everyone around me was like trying to console me, like people who didn't even know our family were like trying to console me. I was like wanting to get off, and then all of a sudden I'm like, please, God, please, please, please save my mom. She just took the bar. Please save her. And I am just completely losing it on that Matterhorn, and just bargaining with God to please just let me off and please save my mom, because she had worked so hard to take the bar. And yeah, and when we got off, people on the ride were coming up like to make sure I was okay, and it was so embarrassing looking back on it. Probably much more embarrassing for my mom, who's like, whose child is this? Oh my God, we need something for her. Oh my goodness. So anyway, that thought came to me about again how fear can just take over and hijack us completely. And it's so funny, I'm even talking about the Matterhorn, because the big thing for me is I felt completely powerless, right? I felt completely powerless in that situation. And then I was very concerned about my mom in that situation, right? And isn't that sort of what's happening now, right? Those feelings of feeling completely powerless, and you're worried about your loved ones and the ones you're connected to, right? And the truth is that I was always safe on the Matterhorn. I was just on a ride, right? But I was safe because God still is, right? I had a seatbelt on. There were people surrounding me who loved me, even though they thought I was nuts, right? You know? And once I got off the ride, I could see I had perspective. I had perspective. And so what I'm inviting us into right now is to understand that we are on a ride. It doesn't make it less scary, because it didn't make it less scary for me in the moment of the ride. But we will get off this ride, or we will stop the ride. And what is true that is even when we're on the ride, there is only one power, one presence, one life, one force, one intelligence that actually created the Matterhorn, right? That created everything everything that is happening now through individuals. Spirit already knows the solution to those things. Right? The things that are happening right now in the world that we see, Spirit already knows the solution to those things. The same mind that is God is in each and every individual. And so our job is to align with it, right? To align with the divine. Our job is to call forth the divine in others, to see the divine in others, to call it forth in others, to help it emerge into actions, into changes, into thoughts, into behaviors, into patterns. That's our job, because we're aware of this through this teaching, right? There are a lot of people who are not aware of this, so they're just on the Matterhorn screaming. And not everyone is going to get like this is just a ride, but everyone in this room gets it. And so my invitation to you is to really anchor in to the awareness of that power that cannot be extinguished or disrupted. It is the disruptor, right? God is the disruptor. So no matter what we see happening right now, what's going on right now, God is the disruptor. God has the final word in what is happening on the planet. So what does this mean for us, right? What does this mean we do? So one of the things that we have got to do in order to get into a state of flow, right? Because that fear is constricted, the fear is tight, the fear has all of this, everything's tightened up, right? And God is open and flowing and powerful and surging and emerging. And so how do we get there? What do we do? So there's a few things that you can begin to practice right now. One of them is, and we talked about this at the practitioner retreat, one of them is be able to breathe. And I know that sounds really simplistic, and it is. But here's what's really interesting. If you can't control your physiology through your breath and get a hold of your breath, you cannot control anything, right? And this is a Navy SEAL training, right? So the Navy SEALs are trained to with a very specific form of breathing, and I want to call it box breathing, but it may be something else, another name for it. But there's a very specific form of breathing that Navy SEALs are trained in, and they have to master that because it allows them to master their physiology when they're in high stress situations, when they're in high level extractions, or whatever assignments they're on. If they cannot master their breath and their physiology, they could be killed, right? The mission could end up with people dying. They have to master that. And so this is something that I offer to my corporate clients, and I offer it to you to be sure to practice breathing. And I know it sounds simple, but here's the thing. If you can, before you go to bed at night, just breathe. Take 3 minutes, 1 minute, and just allow that breath to drop into the body and to feel the inhale and the exhale. And there's all different kinds of breathing where you can do 4 counts and inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Just breathe, right? Just get used to stopping all the mind chatter, letting go of all the tension, and just letting that breath drop into the body. And when you wake up in the morning, take a couple of minutes and breathe before you do anything else. And with my clients, I assign them usually to set their iPhone or something so that every hour there's an alarm, and every hour they take 30 seconds to breathe. Every hour, right? Because what this trains you to do is to get control of your physiology, to get an awareness of your breath, to get back to center, get back to yourself so that you can have some mastery over your response. So now when you're assaulted with the news moment after moment, or assaulted with things from your business or whatever's going on, and even when it's good news, it can be stressful. Right? For those of you who are entrepreneurs in the room, if you are growing a business, and I was just having a session with an entrepreneur this week whose business is more than doubling, and the level of stress, even though that's exactly what the person wanted, the level of stress associated with that, with fast growth, is the same as if it's not enough growth, right? For how this executive is experiencing this. And so this ability to get to the breath, get to center, get to center, get to center, get to center, to have the discipline to be able to do that gives you the freedom to enter into a state of flow. For those of you who are athletes or artists, how many athletes and artists at some point in your life, you were an athlete or an artist? Yeah. So think about when you're in the game, how many of you have been either playing an instrument or been in some kind of sport, and all of a sudden you feel like the game is playing you or the music is playing you. All of a sudden you're at a high level of performance, peak performance, where whatever it is moving through you. How many people have felt that? Yes. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. That is a state of flow. You are now open. You are aligned with the divine. It is flowing through you, right? The song is singing you. The drums are playing you, right? The sport is having its way through you. It's acting through you, right? And that is a state of flow. That is a divine alignment. That is all systems go, all systems open, right? That amygdala's calmed down, right? The hormones are now really supporting you in a high level of performance, but you're in a state of flow. And that is possible in your day-to-day life. So the first thing is you've got to get control of the breath and of the physiology and make that a practice. That is why here every single Sunday I say the same thing in a different way. Right? I say the same thing in a different way. This is why you have to do your spiritual practice. Right? So there's the breath. There's also taking it further into meditation. Because if you cannot get control of yourself, you don't have mental discipline to quiet the mind, to still the mind, or to be in a state where you're observing versus fully engaged and reactive. If you cannot do that, you cannot navigate through this constant barrage of fearful stuff. And then you become a place and space of fear. And the world doesn't need any more places and spaces of fear. It needs people who are connected, who are open, who are flowing. We need more people who are in flow so that we can actually solve some of these problems. Right? This is what we're doing. So this is what I encourage us to do. Hang on a second. I lost my place here. So the other thing I want to talk about is one thing I'm seeing a lot. Is with everything that's happening in the world, people wanting to, and I'm talking about spiritual community right now, and everybody actually, but people want to run out and do something, right? Run out and do something. I want to run out and do something. And here's the thing, the action you take, oh, sorry, Scott, I just bammed on this microphone. The action you take has to come from a place of flow, from a place of alignment, right? Any action you take, whatever that action is, whether it's voting, whether it's marching and protesting, whether it's writing a letter, whether it's making a phone call, whether it's just talking to groups of people, whatever it is, it has to come from a state of flow. Otherwise, you're trying to solve a problem at the level of the problem, right? You're trying to solve the fear problem at the level of being fearful, right? You're entering into action from a fearful state. You're making decisions from a fearful state. You're making decisions from a resistant state, from a fight back state versus a flow state. And you may take the exact same action, but what is important is what's the consciousness from which you are taking action. What is the consciousness? Is it fear? Oh my God, da da da. Is it fighting against? Oh my God, I got to stop, right? Is it resistance? Because we know resistance it feeds the problem. It feeds whatever it is you don't want. When you resist, what you resist persists, right? So the consciousness has to be, and we have to get to a state of flow, of openness, of alignment with the divine, of breathing. I am in my body. I am coming from a flow state, and now I'm moving into inspired action. Now I'm taking action. Now I'm making a decision. Now I'm having a conversation. Now I'm posting on Facebook. For the love of God, please, if you're posting on Facebook, come get into flow. Get into flow and then post on that algorithm, right? So we can see more and more things that we want, or at least more and more energy, more and more of the vibration that we want to experience. So these are the things that we begin to do, that we can do to move ourselves into the flow state. And when we are in a flow state, we are in a state of power. We are being power. So frequently I hear people say, I got to take back my power. And well, you can't take back your power, right? You can't take back your power. Your power is not somewhere outside of you, right? No one has taken your power. Power resides within the individual, right? Power resides within us. It is the power of God within us that is the true power, right? That is what is true. And so what we have to do is get aligned with that power within us. That is how we reclaim our power. It's not somewhere outside. It's not somewhere out there. And the more that we stand in and claim and know our true power, that which we had since before the beginning, that which was given to us by the all that is, that which is implanted in us by the divine, by the only power, once we get aligned with that, then we become places and spaces that unlock and unleash flow for everybody and for other people. Right? But right now, there's so many people, I got to get my power back. Someone took my power. Get empowered. Get empowered. Feel the power within your own being. Be aligned with that which created you. And when you're aligned, you are all powerful. You're all powerful, and you liberate people around you. Your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your family, your community. And the world needs people that are empowered, not people who are powering over others, right? The world does not need any more domination. It needs people who are empowered, who understand the power that they have within themselves and are in a state of flow, and therefore acting from a place of oneness, acting from a place of alignment. And that is how we get these sustainable solutions that the world needs. But right now, there's a lot of people who want to do stuff the way it was done in the 60s, the way it was done some other time. We're in a new time. It is a new time. This is now time for a spiritual leap, right? This is time for a spiritual transformation. It is time now for individuals to get themselves together spiritually and then collectively be together spiritually to actually change what needs to change in the world. And to come up with the solutions. The divine already knows how to solve climate change. The divine already knows how to make sure there's enough food. There's actually enough food for everyone. There's actually enough housing for everyone. Right? It already exists. But even the problems in our world, the challenges that seem intractable, the divine already knows the solution. And so we have to be aligned with that mind that has the solution. And then acting from there, then it gets unlocked through somebody or through a group of people. Are y'all following what I'm saying? Yeah. So this is our charge right now. Our charge is to, oh my goodness, our charge is to move from fear to flow. Moment by moment by moment, watch that breath, get divinely aligned, move in inspired action. And when we do that, we then automatically reclaim our power. We reclaim our power. We realign with the divine. Let's turn within.